for.
This guy's he's a bucket getter. He's one of the best playoff performers in the league.
Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan Mitchell, bro.
Great guess.
Donovan Mitchell,
25.9.
Damn. And I'm guilty of this too. It's just so hard to even think of Donovan Mitchell when you're thinking of things because Utah is just so off the map. But Donovan Mitchell is great. I got to give Donovan Mitchell my flowers every single time I can because the man is he could be a superstar. If he was in a bigger market, I really believe people would be talking about him exactly how they talk about Ja Morant right now.
I think so too.
Yeah, I agree. I'm guilty of not watching a lot of Utah basketball either because it's the same thing I've watched for the last 2-3 years now. Like I'm not seeing anything different anytime I watch Utah.
They're the new
I know what I'm
Portland to
getting.
me.
I know what they're gonna do. They're gonna funnel everything to Rudy. Donovan's gonna carry the offense.
I tried to watch them this week and I just I couldn't do it. Like it's just it's just Donovan's showtime for sure, but it's like everything else, I just and I like Mike Conley. He's one of my favorite guards in the league. I don't dislike Rudy. I know Rudy's impact I know what it is, but it's just I just don't like watching this team, man. Which maybe I'm being ungrateful because they're still a very good team. But, man, I just cannot watch them night in and night out.
They just need to make a change. I don't know if they can, but it's like the only change they've made is getting off of Joe Ingles, and it really wasn't for much.
Yeah, once they extended Rudy, they kind of just locked themselves in until Mitchell either re-signed or leaves.
Which is it's like you can't you can't fault them for that, just like how you can't fault them for paying Mike Conley a lot of money this past offseason because it's like, what else are they gonna do? They're not gonna draft. They're not going to be able to draft anybody because they're not going to have a top pick. Nobody's going to go there that's a significant free agent. Kind of have to, give Rudy the super max extension. You got to give an old Mike Conley a lot of money to stay. So they're just in a tough situation, man. And I think they're a team kind of like how Gabe just said they're the new Portland. They've just maximized everything that they could do. And this group is not going to – I don't think this group is going to get, them to the promised land, which is ultimately a championship.
It's just a small market struggle. It's like if you draft well enough, you can get 1 or 2 stars, and then usually getting that third really good guy. I feel like you kind of get through a trade with some other pieces you have. It's that's pretty much what Milwaukee did. It just got them over the hump because Giannis is a level above most other superstars. The Raptors got Kawhi. They had Kyle and Pascal played great that year, so I would consider him a second star for that point. And they made the traded DeMar and some pieces for Kawhi, and that's how they won it. I mean, not that Toronto's a small city, but it's hard to get free agents because of the national boundary. But yeah, things like that, it's if the Mavericks ever get a big star to put alongside Luka, it'll probably just have to be they draft well if they make a trade. And that's really the name of the game. I really don't know if Utah can get much better though, because it's they have their 2 stars, they have their third guy they got. Donovan Mitchell is great. I just said he was great, but is he Giannis level? Probably not. So it's does that take you to where you want to be? Once again, probably not.
And they don't really have that elite second guy on offense either. It's not like you have Giannis and then you have Middleton or even just one of a Middleton or a Jrue Holiday. Mike Conley is good, but he's not the Mike Conley we used to know 4 or 5 years ago. He's not going out getting 20 a night, making a ton of clutch buckets down the stretch as much as he was. After that, there's fine pieces, but they don't really have anyone at that type of level around Donovan that they can really rely on come playoff time. So it's not a direct comparison. I know it's a bit unideal because of Mike Conley being on both teams, but based on being a small market and kind of where they are stuck at, it almost reminds me of Memphis with Randolph and Marc Gasol and Mike Conley, where they were a really good team. They did get in and around some conference finals, but they weren't quite good enough to really be a top-tier contender. I'd say that Memphis team was probably slightly better, but they're just a small market team that doesn't really have anywhere else to go. This is just the best option they have.
That's a great comparison. I want to ask you guys, what would be that ideal second guy to Donovan Mitchell? Would it be a wing or maybe an upgrade over Mike Conley, which is tough to say? or, what kind of second option would be ideal for this Utah Jazz team?
This is going to sound so random, but, bro, if the Celtics ever split up the Jays, bro, if I saw Donovan Mitchell and Tatum next to each other, that would be crazy.
Oh, that's OD.
That would be
I
crazy.
think
That's
Mitchell
just
would be the
something.
second option at that point.
Yeah.
That's
wild.
I feel like they're a 1A and 1B.
Yeah, probably.
I feel like they're a 1A and 1B. And I would like him with a forward. I think he can work with a good big man. I wish he had one with a little bit more offensive capabilities just to take the scoring load off of him, because I think if you have a second star that plays can take some of the scoring load off but is also more of a defensive impact, I think that's the perfect thing. And that's why I say a guy like Tatum that's has the scoring but then also has that defensive impact as well. I really like that. Something that's probably not very likely to happen as well, him with a Bam Adebayo, I feel like would be really good, because Bam has more of an offensive game than a Rudy, and he's still a great defender. I feel like something just tells me they would mesh really well together, especially the way I feel like they can elevate their games in certain situations. I feel like Bam's a guy who can really elevate at certain times. So that's a duo I'd like to see. And then something that was probably even less likely, Mitchell and Zion would be really fun. If Zion got out of New Orleans, but the thing is, if Zion got out of New Orleans, he's not going to a smaller market. So that's why that's impossible pretty much unless they both sign somewhere as free agents, or Zion got traded somewhere and Mitchell just left in free agency. But that's probably the least likely scenario out of all of them.
I think realistically, I think Jeremy Grant, I feel like we spoke about this before, but I feel like he would be kind of perfect because he's a little more low maintenance. He can defend. I think he could thrive as a second option in Utah.
Is he low maintenance anymore though?
I was going to say, I feel like he's not low maintenance. The way he's doesn't want to leave Detroit because he doesn't want to go back to a lower option.
True, but I think he could still get his, 16, 17, 18 shots a game if he really wants it, because they need offense in Utah, consistent shot creation. Somebody of that mold, but there's not really a lot of wings in the league that would be available for trade, you would think, that are super impactful, because the Clippers have two of the most elite wings on one roster. And then it's all the other ones are young guys or guys that are not going to be easy to trade for. So it's Jeremy Grant should be easier to trade for than other guys, but maybe he's not. I don't know, but that's the ideal type of guy that I can think of off the top of my head. Just a two-way wing that can create shots and will be a cool second option to Donovan Mitchell.
I just think if you're trying to say to get them over the hump, if Mitchell's your one and Jeremy Grant is your two, I don't think you're a championship contender.
I think
that's why most of the guys that I listed, that's why I don't know. I kind of look guys that are 1Bs, maybe even 1As to Mitchell being a 1B, and they're kind of tied for whoever's that top guy on any given night. Because I feel like if you were saying Mitchell is the one and you're trying to compete for a title, it's pretty much got to be somebody that's just as good as Donovan as your other guy. Because while he is great, I feel like he's not on that top number one on a championship team type level.
It's just tough because those guys just aren't available though. So this team's just they're in purgatory. They're in purgatory.
Well, yeah, it will probably
spot.
Any of these situations that happen is probably Donovan going to the other guy's team, not the other guy coming to Utah.
Yeah. Or you would have to give up Rudy, which say what you want about Rudy, he's still super important to this team, man.
He is, and I don't think he would have that much value in a trade just because of his contract. And he's valuable to Utah, but he is way less valuable to any other organization because Utah have just made this team need Rudy. They don't have a defense without him.
Is he $200 million? Is he making that much?
He's 158 guaranteed over the next 5 years. He will be making $38 million next year.
Rudy, he's just one of those roster limiters, I would call it. It's a player with a flaw or exploit that limits the things you can put around them. And I think that makes his value a lot lower in trades.